My neighbor smiled at my barbecue while emailing the HOA photos of my trash cans to find me. I knew something was wrong when Kevin Ashford brought potato salad to my 4th of July barbecue while his phone buzzed in his pocket. The same phone he'd used 30 minutes earlier to photograph my trash cans from 6 different angles and email them to our HOA president with a subject line that read, "Urgent, violation report." I didn't know that part yet. What I knew was that his smile didn't reach his eyes, and when my daughter Lily ran past him chasing our dog, he flinched like she'd thrown acid. Kevin had lived next door for 8 months. We'd waved. We'd talked about lawn care. I'd helped him jump his Nissan that winter, and now he was standing in my backyard with grocery store potato salad and a smile that made my skin crawl, acting like we were friends while actively trying to destroy me. The first email arrived on Friday morning, 3 days after the barbecue. My phone pinged while I was brushing my teeth. Notice of violation. Refuse container visibility. Section 8.4.2. There was a photo attached. My garbage bins, sitting exactly where they'd sat every Thursday night for pickup since we'd moved in 18 months ago. The email came from Donna Pruitt, HOA president, but the photographs had been forwarded from Kevin's personal Gmail account. Timestamp, July 4th, 6:18 p.m. Right around the time he'd been standing at my grill, complimenting my burger technique. The fine was $150, payable within 14 days. I stared at my bathroom mirror, toothpaste foam dripping down my chin, trying to make sense of it. We'd been friends, hadn't we? I rinsed my mouth, told myself it was a mistake, and forwarded the email to Kevin with a simple message. "Hey man, think there's been some confusion. Can we talk?" He never responded. Instead, the emails multiplied. Saturday. Violation notice, unauthorized vehicle parking, recreational. My truck had been parked in my own driveway, exactly where it always parked, but apparently it extended 4 inches past an invisible setback line I'd never heard of. Fine, $200. Monday. Violation notice, landscape maintenance deficiency. My grass was allegedly 1/4 inch too tall, measured by Kevin himself using a ruler he'd held against my lawn at 7:43 a.m. while I was getting Lily ready for summer camp. Fine, $300. Wednesday. Violation notice, unauthorized exterior modification. I'd replaced a porch light bulb with an LED that was apparently half a shade warmer than the approved color temperature listed in an appendix I'd never seen. Fine, $250. By Friday, I'd racked up $1,300 in HOA fines, and Kevin still smiled and waved every time he saw me. That's when I stopped thinking it was a mistake. That's when I started getting scared. My wife Jessica worked long shifts as an ER nurse, which meant she wasn't home to witness most of Kevin's surveillance routine. But I worked from home as a software consultant, and my office window faced his driveway. I started noticing patterns. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., Kevin would emerge with his phone and walk the property line between our houses, photographing anything that might constitute a violation: a leaf on the sidewalk, a garden hose coiled 6 inches into the easement, a lawn chair positioned 3 feet from where it had been the day before. He'd crouch, adjust angles, take close-ups, then return to his house and spend 20 minutes typing on his laptop. By noon, I'd have another email from Donna Pruitt with Kevin's photographs attached. He was systematic, he was relentless, and he was always smiling when we crossed paths. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he'd call out, waving from his driveway while I checked my mailbox and found another certified letter demanding payment. Absolutely beautiful. I tried reasoning with the HOA board first, called Donna Pruitt on a Monday afternoon, a weekday I specifically chose because it wasn't the forbidden day, and explained that something felt wrong about the sudden avalanche of violations. "Kevin's been photographing my property multiple times daily," I said, keeping my voice calm. "This feels targeted." Donna's response was pure bureaucratic ice. "The association takes all violation reports seriously, regardless of source. If you believe the citations are in error, you may submit a formal appeal in writing, accompanied by photographic evidence and a $50 processing fee per violation. The appeals committee meets quarterly." Quarterly. I had 14 days to pay or face liens. I hung up and started documenting everything. Times, dates, photographs of Kevin photographing me. I felt ridiculous, but the knot in my stomach told me this was necessary. Something was very wrong, and I needed proof of what was happening before it got worse. The breaking point came on a Saturday in late July. Jessica had taken Lily to her sister's house for the weekend, leaving me alone to tackle yard work. I was trimming hedges when Kevin emerged from his garage carrying a surveyor's measuring wheel, the kind contractors use to measure property boundaries. He didn't acknowledge me, just walked directly to the edge of my driveway and started measuring, writing numbers in a leather notebook, occasionally taking photos. I watched him for 5 minutes, clippers frozen in my hand, before I couldn't take it anymore. "Kevin," I called out, "what are you doing?" He looked up with that same smile, the one that never touched his eyes. "Just making sure everything's in compliance, neighbor. HOA business. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." The words hung in the summer air like poison. "This feels pretty personal," I said, stepping toward the property line. "You've reported me 13 times in 3 weeks, for things that were never problems before. What's going on?" His smile widened. Maybe you should be more careful about following the rules. That's when I knew. This wasn't about rules or compliance or community standards. This was warfare, and I didn't even know why it had started. I spent that night going through every interaction I'd had with Kevin since he'd moved in, looking for the moment I'd offended him, the comment I'd made, the boundary I'd crossed. Nothing stood out. We'd been cordial, pleasant even. I'd invited him to the barbecue because Jessica thought we should be neighborly, and he'd seemed genuinely happy to come. So what had changed? I pulled up the photos from the 4th of July on my phone, scrolling through images of friends and family, looking for clues. There, Kevin in the background of a shot, standing near the fence, his phone out, and another, and another. 6 photos where Kevin appeared in the background or edge of frame, always with his phone out, always pointed at something in my yard. He hadn't come to be friendly. He'd come to gather evidence. The potato salad had been camouflage for a reconnaissance mission. Monday morning, I called a lawyer. Rebecca Thornton, real estate attorney, 19 years of experience handling HOA disputes. Her consultation fee was $250 for an hour, which I paid with a credit card that was already carrying too much debt. I explained everything, the violations, the surveillance, the sudden escalation after months of normalcy. She listened, took notes, and then asked the question that changed everything. Have you checked if he's filing complaints against other neighbors? I hadn't. She told me to canvass the neighborhood, talk to people, find out if this was a pattern, or if I was being specifically targeted. If he's doing this to everyone, it's an enforcement issue, she said. If he's only doing it to you, we might be looking at harassment. And if we're looking at harassment, we need to understand why. I spent the next 3 days knocking on doors. Out of 26 houses in our HOA subdivision, I spoke with representatives from 19. The results were stunning. Kevin had filed exactly 0 complaints against anyone else, not one. Several neighbors didn't even know who he was. Mrs. Patricia Walsh, a retired teacher who'd lived on our street for 32 years, told me she'd never received a single HOA violation in all that time. We barely have board meetings anymore, she said. Donna basically runs everything by email. Why? Are you having problems? I showed her the stack of violation notices I'd received. She went pale. This isn't normal, she said. This isn't how we do things here. Someone's got it out for you. An older gentleman named Richard Wu, who lived 3 houses down, confirmed that Kevin had never approached him about violations, despite the fact that Richard's yard was objectively less manicured than mine. Kid keeps to himself, Richard said. Never seen him talk to anybody except you, actually. Saw you two chatting by the mailboxes a few times back in spring. I returned to Rebecca Thornton's office with my findings. She reviewed my documentation, the timeline of violations, the photos of Kevin surveilling my property, the statements from neighbors confirming they'd never been targeted. This is textbook harassment, she said, and it's escalating. We need to file for a restraining order, but first we need to understand motive. People don't do this without reason. Has there been any conflict? Any dispute over property lines, parking, noise? I shook my head. Nothing. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, drumming her fingers on her desk. Then we're missing something. Something that connects his behavior to you specifically. Think hard. Any shared history before he moved in? Any mutual connections? Anything? I thought about it for a long moment, then remembered something odd. When he first moved in, I said slowly, he asked me where I worked. I told him I was a software consultant, worked from home. He got this weird look on his face and asked what company. I told him I freelanced, worked with various clients. He seemed disappointed? I didn't think much of it at the time. Rebecca's eyes sharpened. What company did he think you worked for? I shrugged. No idea. He never said. She made a note. I want you to do something for me. Pull his property records. Find out where he moved from, what he does for work. Anything public record can tell us. Sometimes harassment stems from something the victim doesn't even know they did. I spent that evening on public databases. Kevin Michael Ashford, age 38, purchased the house next door for $390,000 in November of last year. Previous address, Seattle, Washington. Occupation listed on mortgage documents, systems administrator. I stared at that last detail. Systems administrator. IT work. Same field as me, broadly speaking. Was that the connection? I dug deeper. Found his LinkedIn profile, dormant for 2 years but still public. Previous employer, Tech Dynamics Solutions. My stomach dropped. I'd consulted for Tech Dynamics 3 years ago. 6-month contract, handled their database migration project. It was good work, professional, no conflicts. Had Kevin worked there at the same time? I called Rebecca from my car at 9:30 p.m., sitting in a grocery store parking lot, because I didn't want Jessica to hear the panic in my voice. He worked at Tech Dynamics, I said. Same company I contracted for. Different department. We probably never met, but we were there simultaneously in 2022. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. That's not a coincidence. He moved across the country and bought the house next to yours. That's deliberate. We need to find out what happened at Tech Dynamics. Something connects you two, and he's nursing a grudge big enough to relocate his entire life around it. She paused. I'm going to make some calls. Meanwhile, Document everything. Every photo he takes, every violation notice, every interaction. We're building a case, and we need it to be airtight. The next violation notice arrived on Thursday morning. Unauthorized assembly, excessive noise disturbance. Kevin claimed I'd hosted a loud party the previous Wednesday evening that had violated quiet hours. I'd been alone that night, watching television at normal volume while Jessica worked a night shift. No guests, no music, no noise whatsoever. The fine was $500, and the notice threatened escalation to county authorities if the violations continued. I photographed the notice, time-stamped it, and added it to my growing file. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I confronted Kevin directly. He was getting his mail when I walked over, my hand shaking with suppressed rage. "The party complaint," I said. "You know that's a lie. I was alone Wednesday night. There was no party." Kevin didn't even look up from his mail. "HOA takes noise complaints seriously. Maybe you should be more aware of your impact on the community." His voice was flat, rehearsed. "What did I do to you?" I asked. "At Tech Dynamics, what happened?" That got his attention. His head snapped up, and for the first time since this started, the mask slipped. The smile vanished. His eyes went cold and hard. "You don't even remember," he said quietly. "That's the best part. You ruined my career, and you don't even remember." Before I could respond, he turned and walked back into his house, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood there in the street, my mind racing through every project meeting, every email, every interaction I'd had at Tech Dynamics. What had I done? What could I have possibly done to trigger this level of hatred? I called my old project manager from Tech Dynamics that afternoon, Linda Fitzgerald, now working at a startup in Austin. She remembered me. "You did great work for us," she said. "Clean migration, zero data loss, finished ahead of schedule. Why?" I explained the situation, Kevin, the harassment, his claim that I'd ruined his career. Linda was quiet for a long moment. "Kevin Ashford," she repeated. "Systems admin. Yeah, I remember him. He was let go about a month after your contract ended. Performance issues, I think. But I don't see how that connects to you." I pressed her. Was there any overlap between my project and his work? Anything that might have affected him? Another pause. "Well, your migration did expose some security vulnerabilities in the existing system. Nothing you caused, they were already there. But when we fixed them, we discovered someone had been using admin access inappropriately. Personal use of company resources, that kind of thing. Kevin was terminated as part of that cleanup. But that wasn't your fault. You were just doing your job." But Kevin didn't see it that way. In his mind, I'd uncovered the evidence that got him fired. Never mind that he'd violated company policy. Never mind that I'd had no idea he existed or what he'd been doing. My work had triggered the investigation, and that made me responsible. He'd spent 3 years nursing that grudge, tracking my life through public records, waiting for an opportunity to move next door and make my life hell in return. It was insane. It was obsessive. And now I understood why he smiled. Because every violation notice was revenge, and he was savoring it. Rebecca Thornton filed for a restraining order that Friday. We had enough evidence. The targeting, the surveillance, the fabricated violations, his admission that he held me responsible for his termination. Judge Patricia Monroe granted a temporary order pending a full hearing, scheduled for 3 weeks out. Kevin was required to cease all contact and stay at least 100 feet from me and my property. The restraining order made things worse. Kevin couldn't approach me directly anymore, but that didn't stop the HOA violations. They increased. Donna Pruitt sent me 19 notices in 5 days, each one citing photographs that had clearly been taken from Kevin's property using a telephoto lens. My car was parked at an improper angle. My mailbox flag was raised at a non-compliant hour. A bird feeder in my backyard violated aesthetic guidelines I couldn't find in any official documentation. The fines totaled $4,300. Rebecca filed a motion to compel the HOA to produce all governing documents and prove the violations were legitimate. We also submitted complaints to the county about Kevin's surveillance, attaching timestamps photos showing his camera aimed at my house at all hours. "He's spiraling," Rebecca said. "The restraining order threatened his control, so he's escalating through the only channel he has left. This is going to get worse before it gets better." She was right. On a Monday in August, again avoiding the forbidden day, I came home from picking up Lily at summer camp to find county code enforcement in my driveway. Officer James Whitmore, 26 years with the department, holding a clipboard and a very official-looking citation. "You the homeowner?" he asked. I confirmed I was. "Received multiple reports of unpermitted structural modifications. Need to inspect your property." I let him in because refusing would have looked suspicious, and watched as he walked through my house making notes. He found nothing. No unpermitted modifications, no code violations, nothing wrong whatsoever. "Who reported this?" I asked. Whitmore consulted his notes. "Anonymous tip. Came through the county hotline. Caller claimed you'd knocked down a load-bearing wall without permits." He looked around my obviously unmodified house and sighed. "This is the 3rd bogus call we've gotten for this address in 2 weeks. You having a dispute with a neighbor?" I showed him everything. The HOA violations, the restraining order, Kevin's surveillance photos, the connection to his termination. Whitmore listened, made notes, and told me something that made my blood run cold. If he's filing false reports to government agencies, that's a crime. You need to document every instance and file a police report. This has gone beyond HOA squabbles into criminal harassment. He gave me the name of a detective who specialized in stalking and harassment cases, Robert Kingsley, 15 years with the department's Special Victims Unit. Tell him Whitmore sent you, he said, and be careful. People who get this obsessed, they don't stop on their own. If you are enjoying this story already, please subscribe to see more stories like this. Detective Kingsley met with me the following afternoon at the police station. I brought everything: printed emails, photos, timeline documentation, witness statements from neighbors, Rebecca Thornton's legal filings, the code enforcement reports. He reviewed it all methodically, asking questions, making notes, his expression growing darker as the full scope emerged. This is stalking, he said finally. Coordinated, calculated, and escalating. The restraining order should protect you, but he's found ways around it. We need to establish pattern and intent for criminal charges. He photographed all my evidence, added it to an official case file, and told me what I was afraid to hear. Cases like this, the stalker usually has an endpoint in mind, something they're building toward. We need to figure out what that is before he reaches it. I didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, on a Thursday afternoon, Child Protective Services showed up at my door. Melissa Cartwright, investigator, 12 years with the department. Someone had called in a report claiming I was abusing my daughter Lily. The allegations were specific and horrifying: physical abuse, neglect, unsafe living conditions. They were also completely false. Melissa interviewed Lily, inspected our home, spoke with Jessica, and reviewed Lily's pediatric records. Within an hour, she'd determined the report was unfounded. This happens sometimes, she said. Malicious reports filed to harass someone. We take every call seriously, but this one doesn't hold water. Your daughter is clearly healthy, happy, and well cared for. She paused at the door. Whoever called this in could face charges for filing a false report. You know anyone who might do that? I gave her Kevin's name and Detective Kingsley's contact information. She wrote them both down and promised to follow up. That night, Jessica and I sat in our bedroom after Lily was asleep, and my wife finally broke down. She'd been strong through all of this, supportive and steady, but the CPS visit had crossed a line. He tried to take our daughter, she said, her voice shaking. That's what this was. He called CPS hoping they'd remove Lily from our home. What kind of person does that? I held her while she cried, and I made a decision. We couldn't just defend anymore. We had to go on offense. I called Rebecca Thornton and told her I wanted to file a civil lawsuit. Harassment, emotional distress, defamation, whatever we could make stick. I want him to hurt the way he's hurt us, I said. Rebecca's response was measured. We can do that, but I think we should wait for the criminal case to develop. If Detective Kingsley charges him, we'll have more leverage in civil court. The police investigation will uncover things we can't access on our own. The criminal investigation moved faster than I expected. Detective Kingsley subpoenaed Kevin's phone records, internet search history, and email accounts. What he found was damning. Kevin had spent months planning this harassment campaign. Google searches dating back 18 months. How to get neighbor fined by HOA, ways to make neighbor move, anonymous tip lines for code enforcement, CPS report criteria, draft emails to the HOA that had never been sent, refining his language, perfecting his complaints. Photos of my house taken from multiple angles, dated weeks before he'd ever filed a complaint. And most disturbing, a folder on his computer labeled Project Payback, containing detailed notes about my schedule, my family, my habits. He'd been surveilling me long before the violations started. The restraining order hearing had just been the trigger that made him accelerate his timeline. The county prosecutor, Elizabeth Navarro, 23 years as a district attorney, reviewed the evidence and filed criminal charges. 3 counts of stalking, multiple counts of filing false reports to government agencies, criminal harassment, and 1 count of making false statements to Child Protective Services. Kevin was arrested on a Wednesday morning. I watched from my window as police led him out of his house in handcuffs. He looked up at my window as they put him in the patrol car, and even then, even in handcuffs, facing criminal charges, he smiled. That smile haunted me for weeks afterward. The trial happened in November. Rebecca Thornton helped me prepare a victim impact statement for the sentencing hearing. I described the 8 months of hell, the fear every time my phone buzzed with a new violation notice, the panic when CPS arrived, the way Lily had started asking why the police kept coming to our house. The judge, Honorable Thomas Bradford, presiding over county criminal court for 31 years, listened to everything. The prosecution presented the evidence, the surveillance photos, the search history, the false reports. Kevin's defense attorney tried to argue it was just an HOA dispute that got out of hand, but the documented obsession, the cross-country move, the false CPS report, it all painted a picture of someone who'd crossed every line. The jury convicted on all counts. Kevin Ashford was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 3 years of probation upon release, and a permanent restraining order prohibiting any contact with me or my family. The judge also ordered him to pay restitution for my legal fees and reimburse the county for the resources wasted on his false reports. His house went into foreclosure 6 months later when he couldn't make payments from jail. A lovely young couple bought it in the spring. They have a golden retriever and bring over fresh cookies sometimes. We've become genuinely friendly. I helped them install a new porch light last month, the kind with warm LED bulbs that match the HOA's approved color temperature exactly. The HOA violations all got dismissed once the criminal case exposed what Kevin had been doing. Donna Pruitt personally apologized and resigned from the board out of embarrassment that she'd been manipulated so easily. The neighborhood instituted new policies requiring independent verification before any violation is assessed, and no single resident can file more than 3 complaints in a 30-day period. Patricia Walsh took over as HOA president and runs things with actual common sense. My conversation with her about neighborhood events doesn't fill me with dread anymore. But the real resolution came 8 months after Kevin's sentencing. I was checking my mailbox on an ordinary Saturday when I found a letter from Washington State Department of Corrections. Inside was a single page, handwritten in careful block letters. I understand now that what I did was wrong. The therapy they make us attend here helped me see that I blamed you for my own failures. You didn't get me fired. I got myself fired by breaking the rules. You were just doing your job. What I did to you and your family was unforgivable. But I'm asking for forgiveness anyway, because my therapist says I need to take responsibility. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you and your daughter are okay. I hope you can have barbecues again without looking over your shoulder. I don't expect you to write back. I just needed you to know that I know what I did, and I'm sorry. It was signed, Kevin Ashford, inmate 8934521. I stood in my driveway holding that letter, reading it 3 times, feeling something loosen in my chest that had been tight for over a year. He would never undo the damage. Lily still got anxious when strangers knocked on our door. Jessica still flinched at unexpected phone calls. I still caught myself checking the property line obsessively, making sure everything was perfect, afraid of some invisible violation I'd missed. The scars were real and lasting. But the apology mattered. Not because it erased anything, but because it confirmed what I'd needed to hear. This wasn't about me. It never had been. Kevin had brought his demons across the country and projected them onto an innocent target, and somewhere in a jail cell, he'd finally realized that. I didn't write back. Rebecca Thornton advised against any contact, and honestly, I had nothing to say. The letter was for him, not me, part of his process, his recovery, his attempt to become someone better than the person who'd terrorized my family. I hoped he succeeded. Not for his sake, but because I didn't want anyone else to go through what we'd survived. I filed the letter with all the other documentation from those 8 months, the violation notices, the legal filings, the police reports, and put the whole box in the back of my office closet. Evidence of survival. Proof that sometimes the system works, that truth matters, that justice can prevail even when it feels impossible. We had our Labor Day barbecue last month. 30 people, 3 grills, Lily running around with the neighbor kids, music playing just under the noise ordinance limit, trash cans properly concealed until collection day. I stood at the grill flipping burgers and watched Kevin's old house, the one where the young couple now lives with their golden retriever, and felt nothing but relief. The woman, Nicole, brought over homemade coleslaw and asked if I needed help with anything. Just enjoying the day, I told her, and I meant it. No one was photographing my trash cans. No one was measuring my property lines with surveyor equipment. No one was smiling while plotting my destruction. It was just a barbecue, just neighbors being neighborly, just normal life, finally, blessedly normal again. If you've read this far, you know how these stories are supposed to end. Some pithy observation about trusting your instincts or the importance of documentation or how justice delayed isn't justice denied. But the truth is messier than that. The truth is that sometimes people hurt you for reasons that have nothing to do with you, and you can do everything right and still end up traumatized. The truth is that legal victories don't erase the fear, don't give you back the months of peace you lost, don't make your daughter stop asking if the bad man is coming back. Kevin Ashford got 18 months in jail. I got a lifetime of looking over my shoulder, of triple-checking that the trash cans are in the right spot, of flinching every time the HOA emails anything. That's not fair. That's not balanced. That's just what happens when someone decides to make you their villain. But I also got something else. I got proof that I'm stronger than I thought, that my wife is a warrior who stood by me when everything felt insane, that my daughter is resilient and loved and safe, that neighbors like Patricia Walsh and Richard Wu and Nicole with her golden retriever still believe in community, still look out for each other, still bring potato salad to barbecues without ulterior motives. I got Detective Kingsley and Rebecca Thornton and Judge Bradford, people who saw through the madness and helped me fight back. I got justice, even if it came slower than I wanted and cost more than I could afford. And I got my life back. Every time I fire up the grill now, I think about that 4th of July barbecue where this all started. Kevin standing in my yard with his phone out, documenting violations while pretending to be friendly, nursing 3 years of manufactured grievance while I flipped burgers in oblivious peace. I think about how thin the line is between normal life and chaos, how quickly someone else's obsession can derail everything you've built. But I also think about how I'm still here, still grilling, still hosting, still living in the house Kevin tried to drive me from. He failed. The violation notices didn't break me. The CPS investigation didn't break me. The surveillance and the stalking and the criminal obsession didn't break me. I survived. We survived. And that's worth something. The smell of burgers on the grill still makes me happy. The sound of Lily laughing still fills me with joy. The sight of my neighbors gathering in my yard still feels like community, like home, like everything Kevin tried to destroy and couldn't. He took 8 months of my peace. I took back the rest of my life. The math isn't equal, but it's enough. It has to be enough. Because the alternative is letting him win even from behind bars, letting the fear he planted grow until it chokes out everything good. And I refuse to give him that. This is my house, my neighborhood, my family, my life. He tried to take it, and he failed. That's the ending. Not poetic, not satisfying in the way those viral stories promise, but true. And sometimes true is better than perfect. The barbecue season is almost over now. Soon it'll be fall, then winter, then spring again. Our second spring in this house without Kevin next door. I'm planning to plant tomatoes in the backyard, right along that property line he used to patrol with his measuring wheel. Big, unruly heirloom varieties that sprawl and vine and probably violate some aesthetic guideline in some document somewhere. And I won't care, because the only person who would complain is gone, and the people who've replaced him water their dog in my front yard and wave when they see me coming home. That's the real victory, not the conviction or the sentencing or the apology letter I never answered. The real victory is that I can plant tomatoes without fear, that I can leave my trash cans out 5 minutes too long without panic, that I can live my life without constantly checking for cameras, without bracing for the next violation notice, without wondering if today's the day someone calls CPS with fresh lies. Kevin Ashford thought he could build a case strong enough to destroy me. Instead, he built evidence of his own destruction. Every photo he took, every email he sent, every false report he filed, all of it became the rope he hanged himself with. Detective Kingsley told me that's how these cases usually go. Stalkers think they're smarter than everyone else, he said. They document everything because they want to admire their own work. Then, that documentation becomes the prosecution's best evidence. Kevin's obsessive record-keeping, his detailed planning, his careful surveillance, it all backfired spectacularly. He handed us everything we needed to bury him. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't pushed back. If I'd just paid the fines, accepted the violations, maybe even moved away to escape the harassment. Would Kevin have been satisfied? Or would he have escalated anyway, driven by demons I couldn't satisfy no matter how much I suffered? I think about the alternate timeline where I didn't call Rebecca Thornton, didn't file police reports, didn't fight back. In that timeline, Kevin probably gets away with it. Moves on to the next grudge, the next target, the next person who unknowingly triggered his rage. Fighting back didn't just save me. It stopped him from doing this to someone else. That matters too. The last thing I'll say is this. Trust yourself when something feels wrong. I knew Kevin's behavior wasn't normal. I knew those violations were targeted harassment long before I had proof. But I second-guessed myself constantly because it seemed too crazy, too elaborate, too personal to be real. Surely no one would move across the country just to harass a neighbor over a work grievance from 3 years ago. Surely no one would spend months photographing trash cans and filing false CPS reports over something so petty. But people do. People absolutely do. And if I'd listened to my instincts sooner, maybe we could have stopped it before CPS showed up at my door asking if I was abusing my daughter. Trust yourself. Document everything. Ask for help. Don't suffer silently because the situation seems too bizarre to be real. I'm done telling this story now. Done reliving those 8 months. Done analyzing Kevin's motivations. Done looking for meaning in madness. The box of evidence stays in my closet, and I'm leaving it there. This chapter of my life is closed. Kevin Ashford is someone else's problem now. The correction systems, his parole officers eventually, his therapists currently. He's not mine anymore. I've given him enough of my time, enough of my peace, enough of my energy. What he gets from me now is nothing. Not forgiveness, not hatred, not fear, not sympathy. Just nothing. Empty space where his obsession used to live. And I'm filling that space with tomato plants and barbecues and my daughter's laughter and my wife's hand in mine while we sit on our porch that doesn't violate any codes because I had it professionally inspected just to be absolutely sure. The burgers are perfect every time now. Not because I'm a better cook, but because I'm not distracted by cameras or fear or waiting for the next attack. I'm just cooking, just living, just existing in my own space without someone weaponizing every small detail of my life. That's freedom. That's victory. That's enough. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.